Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. So I'm so excited that you guys are here and taking the time out of your day to talk a little bit about presentation and rendering techniques. My name is Vanessa. I am the Global Training Manager here at 2020. What are we going to talk about? Kind of the underlying theme of where I started creating this presentation is, of course, we want to talk about trends and what's hot, what's popular, what's new. But I'm going to tie everything back to a concept that I'm seeing more and more in our industry. And if you have ever heard of the Well Building Standard, or if you haven't, check out wellcertified.com. I'm going to highlight a couple of things that I find are pretty interesting in our industry and the needs of our clients that we're seeing today. So hopefully you find some value in some of these tips and tricks. So my goal is to kind of tie some of these hottest trends back to the things that we want to achieve in the software. And you're probably, I'm sure everyone in here has worked with or been on a project that had LEED certified points or was working towards a LEED certification. Well Building Standard is kind of like LEED, but if you think of LEED like a certification for a building, the Well Building Standard is a certification for the people in that building and making sure that that space makes the most sense and is the most conductive to how we can really be the best we can be within there. So also note, and a little technical detail, I'm also going to be highlighting a lot of new stuff. Okay, there's a lot of new manufacturers. That's the whole really best part of our software is we leverage so many manufacturers' catalogs. So hopefully some of the names that you see on the screen right now are exciting to you because these are manufacturers that people have been asking for a while now. So these are all in the March update. Some of them are brand new, so there's more and more stuff coming as they're working on their catalog. Everybody that's in orange is enriched. So they have some finishes, and we'll talk more about what enriched means in just a minute. We also have a new supplier. So the March update is coming very soon. I just got it. And there's a new supplier called Uniboard, and I'll talk about what that looks like. And I love using this one. It's got some really great examples. So in the background, if any of those are appealing to you, look forward to some of those new catalogs. So the first thing I'm going to look at is after studying and really looking at this kind of well standard and what does that mean, and I'm going to tell you right now, I did not write any of this, these next couple slides. This is right from wellcertified.com. First thing I want to look at is how do we design or how do we plan a space to consider how light works in that space. So there are some certain guidelines or certain standards that this kind of third-party certification comes in and looks at your space and determines, are you really maximizing the space in that natural lighting? How do you minimize the glare? How do you make sure that the computer screens are not getting a lot of reflectivity? And how are we taking as much advantage of the windows as possible? Okay, so first I'm going to look at, and I'm going to totally be proud of one of my recent students that I worked with. Office Furniture Heaven in New York City. I was out there a few months ago and we did a really fun visual impression class, and look at this rendering. I mean, just the impressive space, the beautiful windows. We've done a lot of webinars and a lot of YouTube videos talking about how to create those really cool views out the window. So if you don't know how to do that yet, definitely check out our YouTube page. I'm not going to get quite that detailed today, but we will do some different things with windows. So I just want to show off this rendering because what a cool space and what a really good tribute to showing how many people can fit within that space and really leverage all of that natural light coming in, of course, right? So I really thank Derek from Office Furniture Heaven for sharing this rendering with me. And you may have seen some other of these renderings I'm going to show. Like this one was from our Inspiration Award contest last year. And it's a contest we hold around NeoCon every year. P.S. I will have a little announcement at the very end of today's presentation to talk about this year's Inspiration Awards. But just looking at how the light kind of pours into this space. So let's look and see how something like that would be achieved. I'm actually going to step over to Worksheet. So this is a drawing that was actually already done. So some of you may be using our CAP software. Some of you may be using 2020 Giza software. Regardless of the software, once you send it over to Worksheet, you'll be able to see all your products list, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and just open up one of the scenes that was already created back in a drawing. And so in just a second, my visual impression software is going to open up on the screen. And it's going to ask one quick thing. Oh, I already picked my lounge, so it's automatically going to open right up to that lounge area, and I want to mention just a couple things that are set up inside this space. So as it's loading the furniture, one of the things that's already created in here is you're going to see a little bit of architecture. So there's some windows along that back wall. Did you know that we have two types of windows? Okay, so thinking about how those windows should really amplify the space and show off our furniture the best, when I click on one of these existing windows, notice in the bottom right-hand corner it says illuminated or illume. Because when you go to add any of your own windows, the first 5 are standard windows, the last 5 are illuminating. Well, what does illuminating mean? Illuminated means that we could actually see some light coming in the space. So what happens is if I go to do a higher quality rendering, it will start to add some shadow, add some detail to this space, but then I'll also be able to control how the light comes in because these are illuminating. Now with illuminating windows, the one thing you'll have to note right now, you can't put a picture out the window. Okay, so when you see a skyline, those are just standard windows. But with these illuminating windows, what if I come in and I change this to sunlight? Okay, you get to control all of the exterior light settings. So by changing this to sunlight and making sure, now that does sound kind of funny. I have the sun coming in from the north, but to make the most impact on this design, notice how that sun just pours in that space. So if you had a project that you were really trying to show off that type of well standard, what a great way to do it and really bring that in. These always look really, really great when you're using a lot of materials that have a great texture or a bit of sheen. It really just makes things pop, right? So while I'm there, let's take a snapshot of this. Throughout the whole session today, I'm going to be taking a lot of snapshots. And snapshots are ways in visual impression to be able to capture that image. We want to show this off. Now another way that I might want to show off this space is what if I come back and I look at a side view. Now a side view, think of this more like an elevation if you would. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and now I can kind of show off again where those windows are, even with the furniture. And sometimes I'll take side views or snapshots of this too. Sometimes though, depending on the furniture you're using, all the furniture in this example is fairly short so I can see all my windows, but sometimes that furniture is in the way. Did you know that you could turn that furniture off? It's just a temporary feature where I'm just going to come in and say I want to hide everything. In that case, I hided everything. Hided? Wow, I've hidden everything that was completed. Let me go ahead and hide all my items and see if I can get all these things to turn off. There we go. So now all the furniture is off. If there's ever a time I just want to talk about, look at, or adjust the architecture, I could take a snapshot of that. Okay. Now, what would I do with those snapshots? Let me start saving a couple of these. These snapshots, and we're going to talk a lot more about them throughout the session, but a lot of them are going to save in the presentation area. And I'm just going to go through and check a couple of these. I even have a floor plan view from earlier. That if I check each one of these, I'll just save these out on my desktop real quick. I have a folder called Webinar. Okay? Just know that those are going to be kind of piled away, and we'll continue to use them in just a second. All right, now what's the next thing we want to talk about? We're going to move on to another wellness standard or well standard. Thinking about fitness and what they call active furnishings. I love that term. Something where we can really break down the types of desking and furniture and open plan that we're working with, but what makes the most sense so that way we can keep moving within this space that we spend so much time in. Are you incorporating treadmill desk, bicycle desks, any sort of portable like pedal or stepper? Here in our office we've got a treadmill that we can use. And also probably the biggest trend that everybody talks about is the height adjustable. Are people really using them? Do you really enjoy them? And there are some examples or some standards where they say, could we do something and modify and bring in some height adjustable desking? So what would that look like inside of a plan? We're going to look at a couple examples here. Here's a great rendering. Now I know this is not a bicycle desk, but had to throw in the bicycle rendering. This was done in visual impression as well. Or just looking at spaces that have a lot of varying heights. Do you have the lower seating area? Do you have a taller seating area that maybe you could also stand at? And really incorporating a lot of different things so you can collaborate in different ways and hopefully just move throughout your space during the day, right? So what are some of the different things that we'd want to look at here? Let me step over. I actually have a drawing in Giza. There's just one item in this drawing. I know it's not very exciting yet, but I just have an example. It's right out of the Trendway catalog. Although this is not a brand new item, it's something that I'd love to show this one because if I go in and I take this and I send it over to visual impression, what if we really wanted to show off that standing height surface? Now this graphic happens to be something that's already preset, that it is already at a standing height. So many of the manufacturers are starting to offer this now, where now you can visually see that, or even combinations, where I've seen some graphics that show the lower height and the taller height. So notice one way that I've kind of highlighted this. Now I know this is not a very exciting room yet, right? I don't have much going on, but I added a person. We have a lot of extras or accessories and things to really help you kind of see that space. And notice by adding the person in, it just kind of gives you a sense of scale. Because I've got some decently tall walls, some tall windows, but really, can you tell that that's a standing height desk? So when you're adding things like this, let me actually take my person out just for a second, because there's a couple tricks to it. If I go and I look at this in the top view, I like to start here for a couple reasons. If I go and I look for this person, there, notice there's an extra section, and there's lots of accessories and equipment and details. But at the accessories section near the bottom, you'll find people, and there's a few different styles. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at some of the standing people. And you can hover over these descriptions to see a little bit more about them. But let's say I want one of these examples. And as I find the one that I want, let's say that I want this one right here. When I bring her in, what happens is she will be standing on the floor, and I can position her where I want. Okay? You can rotate her around, but notice that she comes in kind of like a funny gray scale. You can actually apply materials. Now, I'm not talking about specifying every little detail of what she's wearing, but just some overall. I love to do glass and really light and really dark if I'm looking for just kind of a sense of scale again, right? So, what would something like this look like? Are there a few more details that I want to add to the space before I do a quick rendering of it? Yeah. What if I could add a little bit more texture to this space? Okay? There are a few settings I'm going to come in and turn on. If I go under the Visual Impression button, under the Settings menu, notice that there is a setting in here that says Allow an accent material on system-placed walls. I'm going to check that. You're going to see something kind of flash on the screen. But what that does is now when I go to pick my walls, I now have an accent palette in addition to my textures and colors. So normally we have a lot of colors to select from, but now we also have a few textures. Now I'm going to uncheck Apply to All because I just want to add a texture to kind of this little bump out in the corner. So just to add a little bit of depth and a little bit more to that space, just a really quick, great way to bring things in, right? Now, in this space, let's see, what were my windows? If I click on this, and I go look, oh, these are illuminated as well. So what would this look like in a higher quality? We'll render that, let that pass over, oh, and sure enough, I've got that sunlight coming in. So of course, you could pick the best position, the camera position, something that you think speaks the best to this space. But one thing to consider, and I'll do this a lot, sometimes when I'm looking at something, I look at it kind of from a bird's eye view. However, it's not always the most natural view for us, because when you print this out or you show this to a client, sometimes you're like, it just looks off. Or sometimes something looks really big when you're right close to it, and then something in the background is kind of distorted or far away. So what I want to mention before I go to take my last snapshot is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn on one more setting. Did you know that there's a setting that you can turn on a 2-point perspective? The advantage to this is, imagine if I don't have 2-point perspective on, sometimes these lines where you see a vertical line, it doesn't look very straight because I can tilt and orbit throughout the space so quickly. That's how awesome visual impression is. But what if I turn on the 2-point? What does that do? When I check it, it forces it that I can't tilt the screen to get this vertical line kind of out or skewed at all. So it keeps it nice and straight. That's a really common architectural standard, something you see when you study photography as well. So now when I go, and whether I take a snapshot in standard quality or I could do one in high quality, of course there's also high quality plus and even hidden line options too. So there's a couple different styles that might speak well to how you want to show this space off. I'll just take a snapshot there. And like always, I want to go in and save a couple of those images. Now, these images that I've got already, just from previous and then the ones I just did, I'll go ahead and quickly save a few of those. Let me check these guys. Okay, those are ready to go. Let's go ahead and save selected. I'm going to put them in my webinar folder. Okay, we'll come back to those. But what if you could also leverage some of the other images? What other images are in here? Notice there's furniture images. And here is that standing height table. If I click on it, there's a better view of it. So, it's such an important thing for some of your clients to really see it, understand it. It helps me visually validate it to see it right here. So maybe I save that item too. I can save that into my folder. Right? Now I've got those saved away. What would I do with that information? Let me actually close Visual Impression. I'm just going to apply my changes. This means I like what I've done so far. I've saved everything. It's sent it back to Giza. So that way if I do a worksheet takeoff, now let me just make sure I'm going to close this file just to make sure I don't have anything else open here in the background. I'm going to send this Giza drawing over, which I know it's just one part, not too exciting yet, but what else could I do to this to make this really impressive, to really knock somebody's socks off? What if I adjusted this preview further? Notice the preview that automatically came in Worksheet replicates how I left it in Visual Impression. So it was okay, but I have a better image that I was able to render out of Visual Impression. Or better yet, what if I have an image from that manufacturer? So many of our manufacturers have great things that we can leverage and use from their marketing materials on their website. So what if I came in here, I'm going to right click and go to Properties. So I'm just in Worksheet. I can jump to Visualization, and I don't have to use this graphic. Of course I can, whatever way that I want, but what if I open this little Load Image button and I go out to my desktop and I go look in this folder? I have an image here that I already have from the website that I pulled this product from. It happened to be Trendway. This is a kind of a big image, so sorry he's kind of small right now, but I'll say use this for preview. So what does that end up looking like? It gives me a really great image. Now yes, this is like the example kind of to the T. It's got all the accessories, all the extras, so I'll need to make sure that I qualify my customer and explain to them exactly what is included with this, but do you think that preview might resonate with them a little bit better? Or what if you have a special color and you want to put that finish in? This option of going in and changing the properties of the visualization is something that you could report on. Meaning, what if I took this example and ran one of the reports? I'm going to step right into the single item visualization report. This is a standard report that comes with Worksheet. I find that it's very underutilized because this is a great visual. It's going to come in and tell me about that product, of course, but it's also going to leverage that image that I brought in. So not only do I have the information about the product, the finishes, the price, sorry there's no discounting on here, but then the image is right there, that kind of custom image I brought in. Would I want to save an image from Visual Impression? Maybe. Would I want to leverage the manufacturer's images? Sure. So many options there. So just a great way, right? Okay, so let's come back over and talk about a couple more concepts. The next concept we're going to look at, or the WELL standard, is looking at comfort. I love when we talk about ergonomics. I feel like that's something that a lot of designers study, but now they're looking at it visual and physical. Of course, desk height flexibility, we kind of already hit on that a little bit, and then standing support. So do we have things that are adjustable? For instance, letting us adjust our computer screens or our laptops. Are we showing that off well enough so that every person kind of has their own unique thing? Also, I have a standing desk, and I don't have an anti-fatigue mat yet. And it's definitely on my list to do, right? Because now that I'm standing more, it definitely is taxing. I can't stand all day sometimes. So there's a lot of other things to consider. So how would we demonstrate this or show this off in our software? Well, of course, through some renderings, as a lot of the manufacturers are now taking the time to add their accessories as 3D graphics. So we're seeing a lot more monitor arms and these accessories to really show off the complete space. But what if I jump over to Worksheet and I jump back in, and I'm going to continue to kind of work on this Trendway example, but I'm going to go to some other catalogs. Remember I said there are a few new manufacturers out here. And some of the manufacturers, for instance, I'm going to jump under Symmetry. Symmetry has some really great examples. There's some monitor arms out here. They have this one. I think this one's the fanciest one. They're King Cobra. If I drag and drop a couple of these guys in, let's say we wanted to quote a few of these. Check out these previews. I mean, their graphics are phenomenal, strong. It shows everything, even the electrical detail. So there's so many manufacturers out there now that are really showing off every bit and piece, and I can share that with my clients so they can understand the whole thing. Same thing with anti-fatigue mats. They have them under the accessory section. So now that's just one example. There's a lot of manufacturers out there, but I love to show some of these. Now this one doesn't have a graphic, but I can still, of course, specify it nice and quick and see. Hopefully I can order one of those soon. The next concept or topic, well standard, is looking at the mind. And I love this, beauty and mindful design or material information. So beauty and mindful design I feel like really fits into that trend story of can you go through and say like what the trend of the year is or what the color of the year is. Everybody has their thing, or that might be a really regional conversation. But look at how they kind of break this down, is looking at human delight, celebration of culture, celebration of spirit, celebration of place, meaningful integration of public art. Those are all things that when you see like the cool tech companies and the really fun, desirable places everybody wants to work because it's got kind of this fun vibe, all of those things speak to this kind of well standard of just having a really fun celebration type of space. And then the last point, material information, this really coincides with LEED certification too that we were talking about earlier when we were thinking about the building and the space, but also looking at all the materials that you're using, right? So how many of those materials are LEED certified? How many of them have additional certifications? There's a lot of different ones. There's a bunch of links on this page, but just knowing that how are we resourcing the best materials possible? Okay, so looking at some of the renderings for this segment, I could have pulled 1,000 renderings with really cool images, of course. So it's always fun to see inspirational artwork, or maybe where something might have been inspired on the design, or just overall just crazy and fun and so much detail. Another one of our Inspiration Award design submissions from last year is on the screen right now. So what I want to do with this one, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to jump back over to Worksheet again, and I actually have another project I'm going to open up. Now I borrowed this project, so if you've ever worked with Denise and our sales team, you might have seen this rendering before. She did this really cool space with uplift desks. So let's go visualize this. Okay, again, that originally started from a drawing. I know I'm not spending a ton of time on the drawing side today just because we're really thinking about the end of the process. We're thinking about, okay, you've already done the layout, you've done the space planning in CAP or Giza. Now how do I really show that off? How do I make it kind of sing, right? So once this opens up, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make some adjustments to the space. Now Uplift is another newer catalog to our suite of catalogs, and when I come in here you can kind of see some really fun, the overall architecture is nice and kind of simple and subdued, and then a pop of color and some really fun, again you have height adjustable, and they've got some really cool options in their seating as well. But what I'm going to do is come in and maybe manipulate some of these finishes a little bit. Okay, oh, I noticed that my 2 point's still on, and sometimes I like to turn that on and off just so I can control my screen, right? So I'm going to select this surface. Now in this particular catalog, unlike the one we saw earlier, Trendway had it as one part number. In this catalog it's two separate part numbers. So the base is one thing and the top is another. So if I were to go into the materials to specify it, it's going to only give me the materials for that top, which by the way, if you check out this manufacturer, a lot of their materials are FSC certified and LEED certified and have a lot of opportunity for credits for that. So a lot of great materials. But let's say that I'm going to bend the rules a little bit, or I want to do some special things to this. Now I'm not saying that the finishes I pick next are really real finishes for this product line. I just want to show you how easy it is to put any finish on anything. Okay? So instead of going through the standard finishes here, I'm actually going to come up, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a Visual Materials button. I'm going to go shopping for something else. Do you remember a little bit earlier I mentioned that there was a brand new supplier? So first of all, if you've never used this, there's a bunch of different sections of materials that we give you to get started with. The idea is you can bring or go and shop for materials from very common suppliers that everybody works with. So the newest one in this list is called Uniboard. And look at these great images. You'll notice that Uniboard has a lot of wood tones with a really, really nice repeat. I'm sure some of you have rendered with things where you go and you pull it up and you're like, well, it looked good in the small swatch, but when you bring it in big scale, it didn't really make the cut. It just looked a little funky or not quite what I was hoping for. So we've got some really, really great images in here. Now, like I mentioned, this supplier is brand new as of March, so that those March discs should be shipping really soon. So when you get that, definitely make sure to install these, because I might come in here and say, you know what, let's try a couple of these finishes out. I can come through and I can look at some of these in kind of a bigger scale. I really like this one that's really kind of this muted gray. I'm going to just quick create a shortcut to it. What's a shortcut? Just an easier way to get to it. So I'm just going to come in and call this webinar. Okay, now I'm going to also say, what if we can compare this one too? Because that is just gorgeous. All right, we'll create a shortcut to this as well. We'll throw it in the webinar folder. And then let's do something that's just completely different. How about just kind of like a real solid tone, just so we can do some nice comparisons. Toss that in the webinar folder. Now, by me putting that in my own little, sorry, I called it a folder. It's really a palette. By me putting in this palette, I am able to get to it really quickly when I'm in visual impression, because notice I just saved a quick link to those 3 images. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close visual materials for a second. And now when I'm back in my rendering, I can zoom in nice and close. Let's get in there a little bit closer. And I'm going to study the product a little bit. I'm going to go into advanced, and I'm going to uncheck visualize materials. And that breaks it down by layer color, so I can have a better understanding of all the intricate parts and which layer is what. So the pink and the red are really what I'm going for. Notice this kind of pink layer here and the red layer here. So if I go into my webinar palette, let's try out that simple, how about the solid color first? We'll do the top and we'll do the edge. Now I do need to check the visualize button back on so I can see what does that color look like. Solid color, sometimes it's like you got to kind of give and play. When you're working with this design is very cool. It's got a lot of blues and grays, so it tends to take on, like the whites and the grays take on kind of a more of a gray undertone. But if I were to switch this out to something like this, I mean, what a cool, just a different look, right? And this, oh my gosh, you guys are going to love this. It is wild. It is crazy. You see so much of this live, active material in so many of our spaces today that it's just super fun to see. So again, I'm totally bending the rules and just borrowing one manufacturer or supplier's material to use on another manufacturer's product. But when you're trying to get an idea across or a concept across, whether it's a standard item or a special item, what a great way to really be able to show that, because that is completely different looking than the standard product that I began with, right? So very cool. Now, a couple other things to consider since we're in here. There are already some lights planned in this space. And this light was actually brought in through rooms and going under all of my extras again, or sorry, under lights. These lights, did you know that they have their own lighting controls? Meaning if I've clicked on a light like this, in the bottom right-hand corner, do you notice there's a little slider bar? So I can turn that light up and down to increase the intensity. So if there's a little bit too much of a glare when you render this in high quality, I just might need to adjust that a little bit. You've probably found that if you add a bunch of lights in this space, it like overpowers the space sometimes. So I don't always want to turn those way, way up. Maybe I just want one that's kind of an accent, and the rest I'll turn them fairly far down. So that way it doesn't overpower everything or get too kind of hot in that area, if you would. So don't forget that those individual lights have their own controls too. We'll render that. Oh, it's got a nice chrome finish. Notice that you can actually see that light reflect a little bit off of that middle panel. Just so, so impressive looking. Now let me put that finish rendering. Let's take a quick snapshot. Just so that this is consistent, I should probably reuse that finish, right? I've got that desk in here a couple times, so I'm just going to come back to materials. And while I'm in here, let's just from that summary screen apply that to more items, and we'll go ahead and apply it to anything that can take it. That way we've got a little more consistency, because then you're going to look at that and love it or hate it, right? Because it's got so much pattern to it. So then one last time, let me just render that in a higher quality. And like everything, sometimes I'll play with my windows, whether I want them illuminating in. Sometimes I'll set this to a 2-point perspective so it's nice and straight. Just make it look the most professional and to show off that furniture as best as possible. Take one more snapshot there. Cool. All right, now, what would I do with all of this? Here's the fun part, because now I'm going to be able to take all these pictures and put them together into something to present the whole entire project. I'm obviously being very specific and detailed on like one thing, one item, one option, but there's so many things to consider in our projects, right? So I'm back in presentation. Let me go ahead and save a couple of those images. So it looks like this one is the one that I kind of left it at with my cool new finish. Let's save that selection out in my webinar folder. And then while I'm in here, let's scroll down, and knowing that maybe some of these chairs were so important to the type of environment I was trying to create here, the well standard, like this is a really fun motion stool. Maybe I'll take some of these guys as well and save those out to my folder. And I'll come down and notice that I've got my materials, even my custom materials. So I'm going to grab this guy, of course, because that is fun. Now, I'm purposely saving them away for a reason, and you'll see in just a second. But in case you want to work super, super fast, did you know that you can actually just drag and drop a lot of these images to another software? For instance, if I come in, and I'm actually going to have to open up a brand new PowerPoint for a second. Give me 2 seconds to pull this over to my other screen. Here we go. If anybody in here loves PowerPoint, or if you like it enough to tolerate it, you don't have to love it. What if I came in and I added a couple new slides to this, and I got like this presentation ready for you? You know, this is your, oh goodness, let's see if I can type here, your space, something like that. And then what I'm going to do is come back in, and based on any of these images that I've already taken, I'm literally going to take that image and I'm going to drag it down the screen, come down onto my PowerPoint, and drop it right into that presentation. So fast, so quick, so easy. It can also be done on the individual pieces too. So if I came in and I really wanted to highlight that chair, of course I could drag that in. I come down to my PowerPoint, hover over the blank PowerPoint that I just started, bring that in. Sometimes these images have a little bit of white space, but that's all right. There's some really easy tools inside of PowerPoint. If you just double click, you can crop out a bit of that white space. But I'll use this a lot to kind of compile together a lot of images and a lot of different examples, right? So I could, of course, add text, add my company logo, do some really nice branding to start putting together this presentation, whether it's 2 slides or 22 slides, whether I'm putting this up on a big screen versus printing it to PDF. Imagine you're pretty limitless as far as how you want to show that off. So that's definitely one thing to consider, one way to present. But of course there's other ways too. So let me talk about a couple other things too. What if you put together a presentation like this? Oh, I'm sorry, I think my phone might be a little bit in the way here. Okay, so a simple rendering right out of visual impression, and at the bottom of the screen, all of the textures. Traditionally, if you were like me and went to design school, you were going through and scavenging for all of these swatches and images. And then as I started to sell product, then I was always trying to find the actual sample and that texture and that thing. But imagine, what if I want to show off a lot of examples? And option A and option B, sometimes I have live samples, sometimes I don't. How can I compile that? Well, visual impression does a lot of that for you. We collect all of those images. You just have to present the ones that make the most impact, right? Now, what if you take it a step further? My next example, I'm going to kudos to another one of my trainees from McDowell Craig. So this is actually a snippet. I'm totally going to, I love, love, love this example. I'm going to show off just these 2 pages of their spec book. This is their pricing guide right on their website, where they show off some of these spaces. These are visual impression renderings. So in addition to, I kind of cut out the bookcases, in addition to the technical detail and the sizes and the pricing and everything that you need, notice that the images on the left, right out of visual impression, is just marked up. It has some notes about specific types of things or things that are unique to their product line. And then my favorite, of course, is the caterpillar over here on the right. They've got just this really fun product line, and these was just designed with custom materials. Just like I brought in that uniboard finish, you can bring in your own materials as well. So just so fun and so creative. Now, how could you create something where you have like markups like this? How could you put text? Well, of course, I could do a PowerPoint if you're comfortable adding text to that. It's really not too hard. But I want to show another tool that I find I use a lot. And this tool, I've used it for a lot of different things, I'm going to be honest. It's actually a web-based tool. It's called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, so Canvas without the S at the end. And the first time you go out to this website, it's going to have you create a login, of course. So once you're logged in, you'll see this little thing at the top that says, okay, you want to create a design, basically pick one. Now, this is really great because there's a lot of preset sizes. So whether you're trying to create a very professional presentation that's 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, I scroll through and look for one if there's one similar. but notice they have some that are specifically for social media and specifically for certain types of documents. So depending on how big you want to print things, this is nice because they're preset templates. All right, so you could always pick one of these and run. So if I wanted to pick kind of one of the smaller ones, what if I grab this guy right here? This basically just will give me a blank sheet, kind of like where we started with PowerPoint. And notice that I can just come over to the left-hand side, and there's all sorts of preset images and text and backgrounds. I love the text because it has some pre-built typography. But I'm going to go down to uploads because, of course, this is going to be unique to us, right? So I want to upload my own images. I'm going to go run out to my webinar folder where I've been saving a lot of those images from earlier. And what if I wanted to show that presentation from earlier? So here she is. I can bring that in and show off that image. Look how fast it is just to kind of drag and drop it, bring it in. You notice I already have my logo in here, so I'll kind of put that in the corner. I can adjust it pretty quickly. And then if I want to highlight another item, I'll just drag and drop that in. There's the visual impression logo just for fun. Now, is there a story to tell around this? Do I want a client's name? Do I want something else? I'll borrow some of this typography that's already kind of preset. A lot of different styles. What if I grab this one? You have complete control of the size, the color. This one, although it is kind of preset, what if I did kind of like a mix and I put this here, and instead of graphic design, of course, we're going to say interior design, and we'll customize this to this great, we'll just call it 2020, and you can plug in your information here. Okay. From here, it has quick, easy ways to copy that image, duplicate this, and maybe the next image I switch out with a different image. And now I've kind of built a template, if you would, that I can keep reusing. I can take these, and when I'm done, there's options to download them real quick to a picture file or a PDF file. If you do PDF, you can also add links to this. So if you want to link out to certain things, and you can even order physical prints right through this website too. So the stuff I showed so far, it's all free. There's no extras. If you order, of course, you'd have to pay for the printed version of it. But such a quick, easy way to kind of compile everything, right? So just as an option, and just so you can kind of see, I'm going to go back to my designs. And I've got a whole series of examples in here that I've just to play with different options. So many times we've got, okay, option A and option B. How do I show that off the best way? Show it off with all the different color options. Or what if I did the visual impression renderings don't always have to be huge and crazy and super detailed. Sometimes it's as simple as bringing in a few items. Notice I've got the 3 chairs. That's all that's in that VI rendering. Super quick, super fast. And then I kind of talk about the differences between those items. Mark it up with a little bit of text, and I'm running so fast, right? Pretty cool. All right, now we have a few fun things to announce, a few things to kind of wrap up with as we're getting down on our time. Amazing how fast this has gone by. First of all, if you're looking at me or looking at the screen and going, oh my gosh, there's like, went through so fast and clicked through these different things, I don't even know where to start. We do have training classes that cover a lot of the getting started. This webinar is really just to kind of get you thinking about what you want your presentations to be like. What could you do with your presentations in the future? So we offer virtual classes online. Most of them are 2-hour sessions, and they are hands-on. So that way you can ask questions within the group with the instructor, and you get practice time. And we also have classroom training as well. A lot of those happen here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Or if you've got a team of designers or salespeople, we'll come out to you as well. So definitely reach out to us or jump right out to 2020spaces.com/training. If you have some very specific questions along the way, or you're trying to answer a question that comes up, there is something that we've just added recently called the Knowledge Center. If you jump out to our website or go to 2020spaces.com/knowledge-center, you can search by your product. So if you're a CAP user or a Giza user, or you have a worksheet question, a lot of the most popular questions that are asked of our support team are now posted out there. So it's a great way just to get your answer really fast, right? And then like I mentioned, I have something really fun to announce is our Inspiration Awards are back this year. So kind of, again, we're really looking forward to NeoCon coming up right around the corner and just about a month away, a couple weeks away actually, starting April 17th. you will be able to submit your renderings. We'd love to see what you're doing. Do you have a really cool project that you're working on, or have you worked on a project recently that just you had some great visuals? Can you show us those visualizations? It opens on April 17th. It'll be open for about a month. We're going to announce the winners at the end of May, so right before NeoCon. And as you can see, there's some great street cred at NeoCon. We will feature your design. We're going to be doing a lot of presentations, of course, at our NeoCon booth, so we might use your design in that. An Amazon gift card. I always want something good to walk away with. And also a customer spotlight, where on our website we really highlight a lot of people, a lot of designers, a lot of customers, and a lot of our catalog suppliers too. So we'll do a spotlight with you. If you are new to our software and you want to buy, or you have questions, or just want a demo, you can reach out to us either at this 800 number or this email address, so office.sales@2020spaces.com. Definitely let us know if you've got any questions there. For any of my social media gurus, if you're trying to stay on top of all these trends and all these different things that you're seeing, we started something new this year with these hashtags, Tip Tuesday, Knowledge Wednesday, and Sunday Reading. So check out those hashtags on all your social media, and you'll see we are sharing a lot of great information and trying to stay on top of all the trends in our industry. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we will send you a recording of this, so look forward to that in just a couple days. And of course, if you've got any additional questions, don't forget to reach out to us or jump out to our website, 2020spaces.com. You guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great one.